He's widely considered to be one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And on top of that, he's a huge Leafs fan. It's current WWE star, Hall of Famer. Welcome to Leafs Mornings, the pride of Orangeville, Ontario, Adam EDGE Copeland. Edge, what's going on?
The pride of Orangeville. I don't know. Orangeville might disagree, but and if I'm glitchy, I'm sorry. I live in the mountains. This is my Wi-Fi. This is the life I have.
No, you're so good so far, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Honestly, this is an honor. And piggybacking off what Rosie said, do you remember what you were doing at 21?
I was a moron. Not a lot has changed, but maybe I'm more of a mature moron now. I have white in my beard, so that's my testimony right there, that I'm a little more mature. But yeah, when I was 21, I knew what I wanted to be. And I was making strides toward that, but there's no way I could fathom being at the top of my industry at 21 years old. That's unheard of in our industry and in most, to be honest. I mean, at 21 years old, you've just got your short and curlies. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I know, and these guys are ripping it up in the NHL already. Firstly, I hope everything's going well on the home front. I think last we saw you on TV. Your old group, Judgment Day, is just laying a beat down. They're being absolute bastards. We might have to send Rosie after them, by the way. The guy's got some penalty minutes under his belt.
I need a new partner, so.
You never know. WrestleMania. I'll say it right now. But I'm sure you've had some free time, Edge, to watch some Leafs games so far. What have you thought?
I know everybody was hitting the panic button, as is wont to do in Toronto. But it's a long season, right? And the past few years, they kind of started off slow to the gate. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. Goaltending has always been, for the last 5 years, has always seemed to be the issue that crops up. This year, I don't think it was anybody's fault. Like, Murray gets hurt in his first, game, and I thought he looked solid against the Pens, playing against his old team. I'm sure there was probably some nerves there. I thought he made some really saves and kept them in that game. It was 5-2 on paper, but some of those saves, it could have been way different. I thought Samsonov was playing great. I think they're going to be fine in that department. It's just a matter of staying healthy, which seems to be an epidemic across the league right now. I think so much hinges on the fourth line, and I'm liking the look of that fourth line. They get in there, and they've been pushing the pace and keeping it in the opposite end. And if they can do that, it just makes it that much easier for that first line to come out and keep that momentum rolling. I've always said, and take it for what it's worth, because I'm a wrestler with a large head. But to me, playoffs is goalie, fourth line, and your stars firing on all cylinders. And I like I said, it's a long season, but they got some veteran guys. I love the way Ben's been playing, man. Where'd that come from? Like, just all over the place, really pitching in and to try and fill the hole of Muzzin. I think Giordano does that too, but Muzzin's a big hole, man. Like I always say, if Muzzin's on the ice, I feel better. And this year you could tell something just wasn't right. And I can say that just because from the issues that we hear he's had, I've had both of them. So I can kind of relate in that regard. And I more than anything, I just hope that dude's okay. But I always felt better when he was on the ice. So Ben has picked that up.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's been a tremendous story through the first couple games, and it sounds like you're Mr. Eye Test, which we love to hear. At least I love to hear on this program. You need that grit, you need your pugnacity when it comes, especially to winning in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But since you referenced it, like, your story is so crazy, and I must preface by saying I'm a big-time wrestling fan, so I know all about it. I've seen all the documentaries, but what you've gone through, and say even the last 10 to 15 years. Can you give us sort of a picture of and you mentioned you've sort of had the sort of same things that he's had. Could you give sort of a backdrop of what's happening right now when it comes to Muzzin?
Anytime you hear cervical spine, that's scary. That you can't take that back. And I got a triple fusion in my neck, and that was because of spinal stenosis, which is an narrowing of the spinal cord. It basically chokes out your spinal cord. I don't know what exactly he's got going on, but that last hit, it just looked like it cranked his neck. And normally maybe that wouldn't do what it seems to have done. So it tells me, he's probably got some issues in there, and maybe touching that cord. And the thing with the spinal cord is once you bruise it, it's there, and it doesn't feel great when you bruise your spinal cord. Add to that, concussion issues, which, I've dealt with that too. I've had friends that had to retire for 7 years because of it, and were able to finally, after 7 years, make their way back. Man, it's a different beast altogether. And if you got both of those going on, I don't know. I just really worry about the guy from a personal standpoint. Never met him. Just really respect the way he plays and the kind of teammate he seems to be. But man, end of the day, kids, neck, I don't want to go too far down a road speculating, but neck and head is nothing to mess with.
Rosie?
Yeah, I agree. Adam, I'm sure you want to come here and talk hockey, obviously, but we do that all day. We like to get to some other stuff when we got guests like you. Love the St. Pat shirt, by the way. That's when you know you're a fan. But I wanted to ask you, whenever
I'm gonna throw on one of these.
Yeah, I love it. Whenever athletes hang out with, say, rock stars or singers or entertainers in some way, they always want to say, oh, it'd be so cool to be out there on the ice or on the field. And we're always like, are you kidding me? It'd be unbelievable to be on the stage like you guys are. But when I watch, like, say, Raw, and you guys come down that ramp, and it's like, it's just the biggest show and all eyes are on you. And like, that's what it is. I'm here. People are yelling at me, whether you're a heel or not, or whatever the situation is. Like, that is the entertainment value, where when you're, say, playing for the Maple Leafs, you go out there and you're just focused on your game and it's kind of an afterthought. But I wanted to say, how would it compare to you, say, what you've done so many times in all the arenas across North America, to come out of that tunnel, say the Tragically Hip are playing, and you come out for the Maple Leafs and you're twirling around the, what I call the Air Canada Center, but Scotiabank.
Scotiabank, yeah, I guess took out the ACC too. Man, it's from Orangeville, right? Like the first concrete memories I have were sitting with my uncles and my grandpa watching the Islanders Leafs in the '78 playoffs. Like, they're a touchstone throughout my life. They're a constant through everything. I think 99% of the kids born in Ontario, at least, that's a dream, right? Is to skate on the ice and to do that. And it would have been great. But I think the comparison for me is, I have theme music. Like, that in itself is just ridiculous. Like, I have theme music, and when people hear it, they react. Like, you can't, if you could bottle it, dude, you'd be a trillionaire. It's got to be, I guess the equivalent maybe would be scoring the overtime winner and making it past the first round this year. that kind of feel. Or maybe Matthews getting 50 last year, coming out at WrestleMania, winning the world title at WrestleMania. That's probably like the 60th.
Crazy.
I like that, man. I was at Raw in August when you were there, man. I still get jacked every time your theme song plays. I'm like, dude, I was trying to hold back tears at the end. When everybody's come out thanking you, and then you did your speech. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening to me, man? You got to me. I won't lie.
Awesome.
I have a weird ability, and I think it's just because as the older I've gotten, and also the story, like, people know the story, right? Like, I'm not supposed to be doing this yet. Here I am 9 years after being retired doing it again. And I think we all understand it's a pretty limited window. It's closing more and more every second. Like, I woke up this morning, I was like, I didn't do anything. All I did was work out. I really hurt today, so I think that's probably why. But here's what's crazy. Like, I get those feelings when I watch a Leafs game and the national anthem, and I really miss Martina Luis Ortiz. No offense to anybody, but my God, I miss her voice. And I get just as amped up from that.
Dude, I did some digging. Apparently she moved to LA or something. But yeah, I was going to boycott the team this year and just not watch the broadcast anymore. That's how I felt about it.
It was for, like, my wife was disappointed, like, because she can sing. So she really appreciated what she was belting out. It was so pretty, but I digress.
Yes. So I couldn't believe this. The 25th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob just passed. So I ask you this question, Edge. I got to tie in some wrestling here. What was the more? Let me do this again. What was the more offensive moment? Kerry Fraser on Gilmore in '93, or the Montreal Screwjob on your dear friend Bret Hart?
Wow, man!
Tough one.
Well, you're evil. How'd you? Mm. So I was at the Montreal Screwjob. That was actually the first pay-per-view I was brought to as a talent. And Bret helped get me in the door. So that was a weird, freaky time. And because of like personal, feelings attached to that, maybe I'll edge that in front, no pun intended. However, I was in the Sky Dome watching that game, and it was a packed house. Sky Dome was packed, and ooh, that was a tough one to swallow. Plus Fraser's hair. Just...
You're so bang on with that. You're right. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's why I threw it at you. I wanted to ask you about Maple Leaf Gardens again. I've watched a lot of your documentaries and stuff like that, and just sort of your attachment to Maple Leaf Gardens. Can you speak on that?
To me, it was. I loved everything about it. I loved the way it felt. I loved the way it smelled. I loved the way the seating. It was almost you were looking down. It wasn't nicely arched back or anything like that. It was just, God. And for wrestling, it was just a single light. The ramp. You'd see the smoke in the air from all the old guys smoking their cigars. This is a special place. It really, really was. I've often thought, hey, maybe I'll run a show one day in what is now Maple Leaf Gardens, just for my own, poops and chortles, just to just to feel that,
Rose, you got another one, bud?
Well, I just wanted to mention you brought up Bret Hart. My claim to fame growing up my whole life was that my mom dated Bret Hart for about 2 dates, and yeah, I know. I tell everybody that growing up because he was my favorite. Me and my brother would dream about getting the shades that he'd give before his match and everything. But my mom dated him. She grew up in Calgary, and 2 dates, and with the caveat that she could bring her friend along. And he was this skinny little kid in Calgary, I guess, at the time, but grew up to do a lot bigger things anyways. But you ever get out?
I've seen those pictures. He had a big afro.
Yeah, exactly. She said he was nothing like he looked like as an adult. But I was curious, do you get to any NHL games on the road, and is your schedule pretty just jam packed, or do you get to fit some hockey in ever?
I'd like to fit more in. I think the last game I went to was Kings Devils, first game of Stanley Cup. So what was that? Was that 2012?
10 years ago.
Yeah. That's the last game I got to. I really want to get. I want to get up to a Toronto game. I want to see the Leafs play, and I've threatened it quite a bit. I just, managing it with 2 daughters, ages 6 and 8, becomes a little more difficult. And then between I'm filming a show out in Vancouver and doing the wrestling, so it all becomes a bit of a juggling act.
For sure. Well, January 27th, me and Nikki are hitting one in the alumni box, so we'll save a ticket for you.
Oh, nice. Don't threaten me with that, man.
Now we'll hold you to that.
I might
just a couple more and we'll wrap. Since you mentioned that and wanting to go to a Leafs game, I'm not sure if you caught this, but a colleague of yours, The Rock, yes, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, was at Scotiabank Arena. I don't know if you caught this, man. He screwed up the chant. I don't know how you screw up "Go Leafs Go," but how'd you feel about "Let's Go Leafs"? The hell was that?
I was like, oh man, nobody buzzed him. Nobody buzzed him beforehand. But I mean, hey, with him, I think for a couple of games, people actually started doing it. So he actually almost got something going. The other chant hasn't been around for 70 years, then maybe it would have stuck. But I "Let's Go Leafs" doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't roll quite.
No, "Go Leafs Go" is the way to go. You're right. It's The Rock, so people like, okay, that works, whatever. And lastly,
we'll give them some grace.
Yeah, he is the kick my ass pretty much. So again, I was at Raw in Toronto in August. I'll leave you with this. You hinted at a possible retirement, which was tough to take for a wrestling fan and an Edge fan like me. But anything else you can share about the potential? Even what would it mean to you to end your career where it all started?
Well, that's the key. The first time I was told you gotta hang it up. That's it. You're done. And it was WrestleMania, and I retired as world champ, and that sounds Cinderella, but I just didn't know, and that made it hard to chew on all those years. But I had to accept it and move on with what life is now, and started an amazing, beautiful family, and the acting thing started to kind of take a little. But when I had the chance to get this back, the first thing I thought is, I want to retire in Toronto. Because again, I know the window's not open for long, but if I can do it there, I think then I'll be able to go, right, I'm good. That was the last thing to kind of check off. I didn't come back to like win 4 more championships or anything like that. I really just came back to have fun, try and help teach a new generation of talent that I never got my hands on before. And I always say we're not really, I call us storytellers. And come back and tell a hell of a story for 3 or 4 years, and then right off into the sunset and catch a whole hell of a lot more Leaf games.
Yeah, with us, exactly. With us, maybe have a pop or two. You never know. Man,
There we
this has
go.
been an absolute. Now we're talking, right? This has been an absolute blast. We're going to have you on again in the second half of the season for sure. There's just so much I want to get to, certainly with this Leafs team, trying to rid ourselves of an 18-year curse of winning a round in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So appreciate the time, and we'll talk soon, okay, bud?
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Adam.
Our pleasure.